No, he's not in any of those. It's Amon Ra, Montgomery, Gibbs, Preston Smith, or Zadarius Smith,
Goff.
and yeah, Owen Goff. Yeah,
Like I said, it used to be they specifically picked like three players of the game and they got the turkey leg. Now it's just, you can invite half the team over.
yeah,
Nothing means anything anymore.
yeah. The America I grew up in.
It's woke
Woke
Thanksgiving.
people. My gosh. And we welcome you to your Week 13 recap. This is Wilk and Wiz, your bi-weekly update on Utah athletes in the National Football League, and we'd like to highlight you, the fan. Didn't get a highlight of fan last week. Turkey Day kind of threw us off schedule a little bit with plans, and in turn, it really stinks when you upload the wrong episode into the Google Drive.
There's a lost episode out there of Wilk and Wiz now. So we did record a Week 12 recap last Monday, this same place before Turkey Week actually happened. And then we were kind of planning, even when we closed out that episode, we were saying to each other, like, Happy Thanksgiving. We probably won't do a midweek show this time. Turns out we didn't really do a Monday show last week because it never got out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be a lost artifact. Whenever we're both rich and famous in 10 years, that'll be the unreleased holy grail of the old Wilkenwiss days.
A gas leak episode,
yeah,
per se. Deleted scene. That never the unaired pilot, if you will, that you see that you hear about.
That's the one
from some other places.
So even though we didn't do the midweek show, you texted me your picks beforehand. I officially submitted I wrote mine down and had my wife notarize it for me to make sure. But we could have been lying because we both did really good on picks this week. Now a lot of overdogs did win, but
my dad went 16-0.
Oh,
he had a perfect week.
If
he had been our guest last week, he texted me this afternoon, if Denver wins tonight, I go 16-0 on the week.
That's Jameis made sure of it.
Which, yeah, we will certainly get to. Do you have a good? Go ahead.
Well, no.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we can talk Thanksgiving because I don't want to. The reason I was going to jump in there is I was going to say, can we talk Monday Night Football just to get it out of the way? So sometimes we start with Monday Night that we just got done seeing,
especially if it's fun. Yeah,
it's good. No, this was not fun. This was bad college football level of just every play's a pass. Every pass is either a touchdown for 70 yards, defensive pass interference, interception. There's no tackling coverage in between, just a couple garbage performances on a Monday night on a long week where everyone else is working on a short week. It was gross.
Was your Thanksgiving gross?
My Thanksgiving was great.
Love it.
On the episode that didn't get out there, we talked my favorite meal. Like if I could just have a last meal on earth, it would be Thanksgiving dinner. Turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes and really good crescent rolls. That's the best. And I'm simple. Like I don't go for green bean casserole or yams or cranberry sauce or like the 400 other different types of stuffing. It just simple. Those four elements, get them on my plate. A nice root beer to go with it. Like I'm a simple man.
You know, I am not the only thing I'll just not even disagree, but the only thing I've really liked over the years that's newer is like the green bean casserole. And it's because the way my wife makes it is very good with the crispy onions on top are what get me. But no, I'm not a yam guy. I don't like the marshmallows on the sweet potatoes. And that's not my thing.
Out here everything becomes a dessert. A bunch of these side dishes that are supposed to be healthy for you, Utahns have a knack for turning them into just, I mean, it's the Jell-O in our heritage, I imagine.
There's always room for Jell-O, which my wife makes a very good Jell-O pretzel salad type thing.
Yes, like I've had a couple of those.
Pretzel, whipped cream, raspberry, real whipped cream, should say, the good stuff. I do enjoy that as my dessert. Did
you have that on Thanksgiving? Did you like it better than pie? Is that what was coming?
A little bit. A little bit, and it depends on who makes the pie and what year. This year pies weren't homemade, and that was fine. That expectation was laid out before, which is fine. And it wasn't a Costco pumpkin. I love a Costco pumpkin pie. Don't get me started on the $5 Costco pumpkin pie. I love a good apple pie too. But this year my wife's raspberry pretzel salad was better. in my opinion.
Very
This
good.
this year, it's not always, but it's a hit. That's the two things she contributes every year are the green bean casserole and that. And this year, I went out and did my Super Bowl snack from last year that was a hit in the jalapeno popper pigs in a blanket. That was kind
Yes,
of
you
our
have
appetite.
described those. I'm excited for our. I don't know if we're getting ready for the Super Bowl or conference chat. Whatever week we get
When we
together,
get together, that will be made.
that's what I.
That
Mhm.
will be made.
The revelation of this Thanksgiving for me was one of the appetizers before we got out there was bacon wrapped was it artichoke hearts? No, it was Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts and
Really?
cream cheese
Okay.
wrapped
Okay.
in bacon.
Okay.
Just and
That
it's
might
about
be
the size that you can just put the whole thing in your mouth.
just pop it.
Mm,
Very poppable.
yeah.
Okay. Because see, I'm not we have tried Brussels sprouts every. My wife has figured out how to make pretty much any vegetable taste good.
Mhm.
Asparagus. Oh, love some
Oh,
asparagus.
grilled
Roasted.
asparagus. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We can't figure out how to get. So we may have that might be the key.
I
I
might
think
grab this recipe. It was good.
cream cheese and bacon can fix just
Hmm.
about anything. So
Oh, that's so true.
well, one thing that cannot be fixed was the Chicago Bears time management, and we will get to that. Detroit wins 23-20. Penei Sewell with the stat of the year for the whole NFL, not just our show and what we highlight, the whole freaking NFL. 0 for 0 passing, and he was sacked
Yep.
officially. He was sacked. Has
This is
never given up a sack in his career.
and he gets sacked.
He gets sacked. I love it
What a
so much.
game. And what just Dan Campbell rolling these kind of things out there all the time. In this is where the college stat keeping where sacks count as negative rushing yards doesn't usually make sense. This would have made a little bit of sense. Like he was starting to roll out, he was tucking and running. Sometimes the NFL does that where they'll list it
Yeah.
as a sack. Sometimes it's negative rushing yards. Anyway, Penei Sewell, because, and I think he knew. I think it's what Dan Campbell knew that our podcast wasn't mentioning offensive linemen enough because they don't record stats. And so he needed to give him into the stat sheet so that we could talk about his great also offensive line performance to go along with
Because he's
a
still
gadget play that didn't work.
He's an MVP candidate this week because their O line has just and it's just been that way all season. Tim Patrick does get 2 catches for 48 yards. Jalen Johnson had 3 tackles, and the Bears left the game with a timeout in their pocket, and Matt Eberflus left the organization with a timeout in his pocket as he was fired within 24 hours.
And now Chicago starts the clock again with a second-year quarterback who will have his third different offensive play caller because you have some momentum with the old. I mean, this is the same guy that got promoted up the failing Panthers last year. It's Thomas Brown. He's your play caller after you fire your offensive coordinator earlier this year. Now he gets promoted to interim head coach, which means they're going to need a different offensive play caller probably, unless he's still going to do that job and your coaching duties. And who knows if he'll be back next year. Probably once he becomes the interim, you don't drop him back down to what you promoted him up to, which is offensive coordinator. And so, yeah, Caleb will probably have his third different offensive play caller going into his second off season. And at what point are we organizationally ruining another really highly regarded recruit and draft pick?
Ask Kevin O'Connell because he says quarterbacks don't fail organizations. Organizations fail quarterbacks. And anyway, we'll get to Kevin O'Connell because I think he's a candidate for Coach of the Year, even though there's a little bitter taste in my mouth from Sunday.
Yeah. And we'll get to the end of that game and decision making as well.
Sure.
But we've got like 2 more Thanksgiving Day games to get through. The one that was going on while I was eating dinner, and I had, honestly, we turned the TV off and spent some quality family time while the Dallas Cowboys were beating the New York Giants. Drew Lock versus Cooper Rush, and no Utah connections for us to even talk about either. 27-20 was the final score. And once I heard it was Lock, I actually flipped and did pick the New York Giants, and he had a decent fantasy game because he ran in a touchdown. This was one of the ones I missed because this game was a coin flip anyway.
Yeah, I went 3 for 3 on Thanksgiving Day. Green Bay beats Miami 30-17. Jordan Love,
because it was cold.
Throwing the ice cubes didn't work for our guy Mike McDaniel. He was really needing a Browns win tonight after they lost this week. Jordan Love 21-28, 274, 2 touchdowns. Chris Brooks 3 carries, 26 yards. Zane Anderson had 2 special teams tackles as well. Green Bay just slowly doing it. They just know how to win games. It's kind of they remind me a little bit of Detroit and Minnesota. This division before Chicago started, historically playing bad. This division just didn't care how they won games. All three of
Yeah.
these teams at the top can win in multiple ways, and I think that's dangerous come playoff time.
And so Jordan Love, I mean, they had this locked in. Love should be a candidate for player of the week also just for being Jordan Love. Like nothing special, but
Right.
you're an you're an above average starting quarterback in the NFL. You should be considered for MVP every single week. And Miami now starts to make the case for how the NFL arranged this, add a seventh team to the playoff, then you add your extra game. Are we getting expansion at some point? Are we getting an eighth team into the playoffs at some point? Like the balance seems off because right now Miami loses, Denver gets the win on Monday night, and there's this clear delineation with still 4 weeks to go in this 5 weeks to go in the season where we know who the seven are in the AFC, and there's just no chance for anything to break through.
Yeah, it's going to be about jockeying at this point, and even then,
Mm.
all teams can only jockey so much with how some other teams have played and different things like that. So, Cole, I'll take this next one because there's not a Utah connection. I got to give you some love a little later on. Kansas City escapes again. 1917. Oh, I was heartbroken for Raider fan on
Black
Black
Friday.
Friday. It was Black Friday. The Raiders should have won.
And also, Black Monday is what they call the Monday after the season ends and coaches get fired. Eberflus gets fired on Black Friday, and I wasn't sure if Antonio Pierce was going to make it to Monday either because it was the same exact situation at the end. It seemed like where the guys didn't know, and our boy, a Utah connection, is the center in the Raiders team, and us looking onto this, and even some smarter broadcasters and former players, it's tough to tell
Yeah.
who was in the wrong because you still had a couple wide receivers trying to line up. Then your quarterback is making, waving things, but the entire offensive line moves. It's not just
They were on the
JPJ that
same
doesn't know
page.
the
Yeah.
snap count. The whole offensive line was aware. So it is the right call also, if that's still controversial or whatever. The Chiefs, it's black magic, but it's legitimate. And the Chiefs get another win. But man, like that's just a blunder at the end where it was right there for you, and that's what this, yeah, especially after Eberflus and the Bears on the day before, it just seemed like that was going to be the trend for the week. Then Sunday starts, and so we get into hopefully some more normal games, except what Kirk Cousins was doing in this morning slate.
Oof.
The Chargers versus the Falcons. The Chargers get the win 17-13. Just abysmal offensive stats for the Chargers in a win. But all of our connections here are on the Atlanta side. Tyler Algier, 8 carries, 16 yards. Bleh. Caden Ellis, 5 tackles, had a sack, tackle for loss, pass deflection, and a quarterback hit. And then Clark Phillips picked up a fumble. He got his face on red zone there for a hot second. This was a messy game.
Yeah. Atlanta has just really you thought they were finally hitting a stride and turning the corner, and it has just been anything but.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chargers also don't care how they win football games. And that's always been the Harbaugh way, right? For both any Harbaugh that coaches.
And truly the opposite of the Charger way for our entire lifetimes up until now,
Yes.
because they always found ways to lose these kinds of games. And Harbaugh has, in an instant, changed. It's not the city anymore because that was mostly the San Diego way too, and they don't have fans in LA anyway. So like whatever, fans don't impact the game as much as we like to think we do. But the rest of that organization, it's tough to flip the page as quickly as they have, and Harbaugh has, and it's astounding.
It's amazing what winning does. Like when you win as a person, how infectious that can be. And that's what Harbaugh does. That's what the Harbaughs do. They win wherever they go. All three of them, dad, all the way down to the kids. So, well, Cole, your Steelers win in a shootout, literal shootout over Cincinnati, 44-38. Jalen Warren, 4 catches, 55 yards out of the backfield. Miles Killebrew had 3 tackles, a lot of kickoffs, a lot of in this game with the scoring. So, Jay Tufele did have a tackle for the Bengals. Ryan Rico did get away 2 punts, 87 net yards, both of which landed inside the 20, should say, and a long of 46. But yeah, man, a lot of fire. And you kind of expected that at this point. Cincinnati realizes their defense stinks, so they're just going to try and outshoot you, and give the Steelers a lot of credit for for being able to not just hang, but really put this away.
And
I
when
mean,
the when their defense has
yeah,
come up against these great offenses, and it's happened in the playoffs a lot in the Tomlin era, where that's where the cracks start to show, and that's why a certain subsect of Steeler fans, and every fan base has this, would like to see Tomlin fired because they don't think he can win those kind of games, right? And that's gross, and Tomlin should never be fired, and of course that should be the opinion. But 44-38, they escape with this because the Bengals made it really close really late, and it's baffling that the defense just doesn't show up here. And yeah, like I said, this has happened a few other times, but we get the win this time, and that had been missing in past iterations. And Russell Wilson dealing it around and doing his thing like it's 2014 again. I mean, this was fun to watch.
Yeah. I was kind of bummed I didn't watch any of that. I didn't have Red Zone on because Arizona was on in our market.
Right.
And when it's happened 3 times this year, by the way, which is just insane to me because I don't know that it had ever happened in my lifetime unless they were on prime time. And anyway, yeah, kind of bummed I didn't get to watch this game given how my team fared at the end. Great game, but
so you don't have YouTube TV, right? You got an antenna on your roof kind of thing?
I've got an antenna, and then I have my dad's access to Red Zone through Hulu that I just sign in on the NFL app.
Because I'm going to have a little less to say on some of these other like morning slate games because I was doing the YouTube TV dual view of this Steelers game and your Cardinals game because I figured those are going to be the ones that we talk the most about, and they are probably going to be the ones that we talk the most about, especially considering let's get to it.
Yeah.
Minnesota 23, Arizona 22. No Utah connections with stats on the board. But a lot to discuss.
Yeah, it was frustrating. Especially because, I mean, give Minnesota a lot of credit. This is why they've won 10 games. They don't quit. They have a great head coach. And this is why Arizona's been competitive this year because they don't quit and they have a great head coach. It just came down to a few more plays and a few more mistakes at the end of the day by Arizona. And that's ultimately what ended up costing them the game. They settled for a few more field goals, and that ultimately comes back and Haunch. It was 9-6 at halftime. And we got a text from our buddy Jacob, who's a Vikings fan, that said, this game sucks. And I was in church for the full, I didn't watch any, well, okay, that's a lie. I watched the first quarter on my phone at the end of sacrament meeting. Straight up, just going to say it. Didn't watch any of the second quarter, was teaching Sunday school. And then, come home, Marv catches a beautiful touchdown. I'm thinking, man, are we unlocking this? Is this happening? And there's still just that inconsistent chemistry between Kyler and Marvin. And I don't know that we're going to see it this year. It might take an off season of working together to get something like that down. And I think that's the biggest thing for this Arizona offense is the consistency, right? How often are we settling versus not? I still thought the defense played pretty well, even giving up those touchdowns.
Are playing above their weight
without question.
The way Jonathan Gannon has the defense playing is fantastic.
Oh, and it's a culture thing too. I mean, it's 100%, 100% a culture thing. And I love what this team's identity is, what they've missed really my whole lifetime. You've always had, for the most part, either offensive guys, right, and Bruce Arians or Ken Wisenhunt, or you've had, and Cliff Kingsbury, which those other two coaches were at least good. But then the one time you have a defensive-minded coach in Wilkes, no culture, no, at all. So I love what Jonathan Gannon's done.
Out after a year.
Yeah, it was very obvious that was a gas leak year, a patch year. But no, I tell you what, man, I love Jonathan Gannon. I think he's done a phenomenal job. It stinks when you're that close to beating a good team and you played a good game. That was a stinger. I'm not gonna lie. I was pretty stung. That's the most stung I've been after a Cardinal game in a couple years at least. Just where expectations have been low. They'd been playing well. I wasn't surprised that they lost the game, but I was surprised at how they lost it, I guess. And that's what stung. Because you had a double-digit
and
lead.
It leaves the NFC West is still wide open. I'm going to skip down one in our document because another game without any Utah connections. Seattle comes back. I'm pretty sure I remember them being down 21-0 against the Jets, and they win 26-21. No Utah connections, but the only one of two NFC West teams to win on the weekend.
Yeah, this division gets wonkier and wonkier and wonkier each week. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and that's partially why I was thinking, okay, the stink Seattle came back and won because we needed a loss there to stay tied. But given how this season's gone for all four NFC West teams, like anything
Anything.
is on the table at this point, and the anything but winning is on the table for the Jets at this
There it
point.
is.
And you're welcome. Indy beats New England 25-24 and was kind of a fun game. Julian Blackmon, 5 tackles, a pass deflection, big interception in the end zone. That was a big play for Indianapolis. Matt Gay, 1-for-1 on field goals with a long of 25, 2-for-2 on extra points. Sione Takitaki with a tackle. Anthony Richardson had a few moments, but again, very inconsistent. Like
Yeah.
it is a roller coaster with Anthony Richardson, right? I mean, it is a literal roller coaster right now. And Drake May, man, I feel like he just does something good every week that makes you think, get this guy a good O-line, get this guy a few weapons, and the Patriots could be a problem again.
I mean, you might appreciate this. The course of the season and the story that I'm telling, it feels a lot like 2019 Arizona Cardinals and the way Kyler Murray was doing things, where you cover the spread sometimes against teams you shouldn't win. You're not actually getting a lot of wins, but also the team kind of also stinks, but you're showing the right things.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like you have that right, um, that, culture and
Yeah.
coordination between your coaching and your quarterbacks. And also, we don't know how long term any of that's going to be because remember 2019, that was Cliff and Kyler
Yep.
Murray, and that didn't last. And I don't know how much Alex Van Pelt's going to last because they weren't. Media was not very high on him coming into the season. This might buy him a little bit of time, and he's not ruining Drake May, so that's cool.
Yes.
But is it going to be a Cliff kind of situation in a couple of years from now where, okay, now we're ready for him to make the leap, the rest of the team's caught up and they're not ready to do it?
Right. No, it's going to be a fascinating story.
There were a lot of close games just now, right? Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
Cincinnati came down to the last drive. LA beats the Falcons on a pick six at the very end. Minnesota, like I said, 1 point game. Indy, 1 point game. Seattle comes back, 1 score game. Washington and Tennessee, at no
Mm-mm.
point
Mm-mm.
from the coin toss was close.
Mm-mm.
42-19, your final score. Bobby Wagner, only 5 tackles and a quarterback hit because Tennessee just wasn't in a running situation. So Wagner didn't have an opportunity to get his requisite 10 tackles. And Michael Davis got 1 tackle, and Tennessee looks terrible.
Yeah. This went about like I thought. And this was a perfect week for Washington to play a team like Tennessee.
Cliff
Kind of get
needed Cliff needed some good vibes.
Oh, oh boy, PTSD. Houston beats Jacksonville 23-20. Dalton Schultz with his best game of the year, 5 catches, 61
Yes.
yards, and a score. Devin Lloyd had 6 tackles, a TFL, a pass deflection, a quarterback hit, and the fighting from college football ensued into this game from what was a
What
wild
a
Saturday. Like, if you want to talk wacky, the wackiest college Saturday I've ever seen in terms of just
yeah.
flag planning. And thank you, Baker Mayfield, for doing this years ago, because now it's become a thing. And boy, I tell you, wacky week. But yeah, tough hit on Trevor Lawrence. It was
Yep.
appropriately officiated. He was ejected. He
Yeah.
appropriately after apologized and said, "I've got to be smarter. I've got to be better. I have no malicious intent."
Yeah.
I think it worked itself out in the end. That's the thing. You learn from that kind of thing as a player, and you move on, and this isn't a Vontae's perfect situation where there's a violent history that keeps
Yeah.
happening.
And then on the field, after Lawrence goes out, Mac Jones almost accidentally beats this Houston Texan team that, with everything going for them coming into the season and everyone being on the Texans bandwagon, has just refused to be good and impressive at any point. And, at some point it's just a season thing, and you hope that a couple moves in the offseason, whatever they are, can just reignite whatever, and you can get over this sophomore slump. And even though, like, smart people are not even calling this a sophomore slump truly for CJ Stroud because he still is playing well. The offensive line is just messed up. But just as we look at the team as a whole, which sometimes when you get into the weeds of what DVOA and EPA and everything else is happening, you miss out on, this just isn't the Texans' year. And sometimes that means more in the grand NFL scheme of things than any stat that you can make up. And hopefully next year will be, because things are still theoretically pointed in the right direction. They just have not coalesced at any point. And yet they still get wins.
Yeah. Playing in a bad division will do that. So
The other NFC West team to win, Los Angeles Rams 21-14 over the New Orleans Saints. Puka Nacua, 5 catches, 56 yards, touchdown. Taysom Hill, 5 receptions, 37 yards. Jamal Williams had a reception, not a rush, for 7 yards. And Penei Sewell on the New Orleans Saints defense had a tackle.
man, thoughts to Taysom Hill, torn ACL, other ligaments likely impacted. Just gutted for the dude because he's the most unique player in the history of the NFL. And regardless of what happens going forward and everything like that, what a career for this guy to be humble enough to say, I don't put me in, coach. I don't care where. Like,
Yeah.
just and I've always had a bias towards Taysom. I served my mission in Pocatello. He's from Pocatello. He was playing at BYU when I was in Pocatello. So I've always just loved the guy. And man, he's got a bright future ahead of him outside of football, from what he studied in school, from what he's done marketing wise outside of football.
It's almost like he could do anything.
One would say he's as versatile off the field as he is on it. Just want to give Taysom a shout out. He's a big reason why we started the show. Has given us a lot to talk about, and hopefully there is a comeback. There always has been, right? All the injuries through the years, there's always been a comeback. 2 Liz Franks, broken legs, not his first torn up knee. So
and has never lost a step. The man at 34 years old is still one of the fastest guys on a team with track stars. He'll clock it, talk about those next gen stats and tracking chips in your shoulder pads, seeing how many miles per hour you're going. Taysom still has some juice.
Got it. Yeah.
This. So if he wants to come back, the question is the contract and the Saints just general mess of that for their whole franchise and what it'll be. But we love him. Also in the NFC South.
Yeah, this was a wonky game. I had Red Zone on for this. Wonky game.
Tampa Bay gets the win in overtime. It takes them to escape the Carolina Panthers and a resurgent Bryce Young. 26-23 your final score. No Utah connections.
Yeah, I'm working on getting a Panther fan on this week, and that this will be a good time. I didn't think there was ever going to be a good time this year to talk to a Panther fan.
It was going to be, okay, so how do you gently move on from the guy you took 1 overall and
traded the house for?
Yeah, have you changed your culture to mean that whoever the next guy is going to be any different from this? And maybe Dave Canales
Maybe they have. Maybe they have, yeah. Philly beats Baltimore 24-19, and really it didn't feel that close. Baltimore gets a touchdown late. Saquon. I was dumb and took the under on his rushing yard total on my free parlay that I do every week. Thought I'd get cute. And it wouldn't have mattered anyway.
And through the first half, and that has tended to happen.
Right.
It looked okay.
I was not feeling good at halftime, even with I'm like, no, there's just
He'll break one.
Why did I do this? Britton Covey is back, by the way. Had been out for a while, was back, I believe, last week on the lost episode. I think we talked about him. 4 punt returns, 29 yards for Britton. And Philadelphia's leaning into their strengths, and it's working for them.
In the snow game, in prime time, Buffalo gets the win over San Francisco. Talk about a lost year for the 49ers.
Faithful then, faithful now.
Say the line. 35-10 is your final score. Taron Johnson, 6 tackles. Fred Warner, 4 tackles. And Josh Allen got a passing and receiving touchdown on the same play in the stats book.
And Chris Collinsworth still had to bring up the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes on said play.
That was an actual pass to himself, and that's fun and sure, but
yes.
But when your reputation is already that, like if it was anyone else, then it does make sense to bring him up.
Right.
Call Chris,
but it's because it's Chris.
Gotta know who he is.
Yeah. Tell you what, man, the Bills are just dang good. They're just really good at football. And Josh Allen what a week for Josh Allen. Got engaged to Haley Steinfeld.
Yep.
A lot of people upset by that. The social media reaction.
Couldn't it have been me, guy that has never seen Haley Steinfeld in his life?
The social media reactions to that were fantastic, including our own Tommy Johnson, who's a good friend of the show. But yeah, man, it's a good time to be a Bills fan right
And this
now.
was the Wilk and Wisk Good Take Bowl because we were both higher than national consensus on the Bills and lower than national consensus on the 49ers. And it has played out, and it looked like it in this game.
Mm-hmm. By the way, shout out to Fred Warner for playing on a fractured ankle pretty much the whole year. Like I think it was week
Yeah.
4, and he's just kept playing. Went out with cramps, came back in this game.
Yep.
Tough dude. Tough, tough,
Team
tough dude.
captain.
Yep. Well, we got a few minutes to talk about the mess that was Denver and Cleveland. Final score ends up being 41-32 was the final. Forgot to add that pick 6 number onto the sheet.
And that means you missed 2 interceptions from Jameis Winston.
I did get the Cody Barton pick. I did get that on the sheet because right when it happened, that was the last thing I typed before I brought my laptop downstairs. Devon Vele did have a catch for 16 yards. Cody Barton 8 tackles, a pass deflection, the official game sealing interception in the end zone.
End zone,
ran it out 53 yards. Thought he might go. Jonah Ellis
I did too.
44 tackles, 1 sack, and a quarterback hit. Mohamed Diabate for the Browns, 4 tackles and a pass deflection. Denver is going to be a playoff team.
Yeah.
Which is just wild. But this comes down to coaching. It comes down to culture. And it comes down, I'm going to be doing another mock draft in the morning, and I have no idea where this is going to end up, right? Like I haven't had quarterbacks going in the first round because I don't like where teams are drafting quarterbacks and just have so many other needs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested to see how I redo this tomorrow because it is so much about fit and it is so much about your guy, right? Like Bo Nix and Sean Payton were each other's guy. Sean Payton wanted Bo Nix. Bo Nix wanted a guy like Sean Payton. It's the fit is just as important or is the most important thing. It's not position. It's
over
not
talent,
where.
over.
Yes.
It ends up
being fit.
And draft analysis will never get that because they still see the long term. And that's what teams also should be doing here too. Because yes, this fit has worked in their rookie year. The ceiling still exists for a guy like Bo Nix, even if you've figured that out. And even if his rookie year has been fantastic and you've stepped right into it, if you told me right now, did I need to start a team with Bo Nix or Caleb Williams? My answer is still Caleb Williams, no matter how bad he's looked, because
agreed.
I still hope that someday he will have that higher ceiling. Right now, the floor is lower, and Bo Nix just kind of is what he is. But Caleb is still Caleb, man, and you got to shoot for it. And in order to win a Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, those guys have something special. And Caleb could have it. Drake May could have it, right? Jaden Daniels could have it. The other 3 guys that went in the first round probably don't.
Yeah, but it's gonna be an interesting trajectory to follow without question.
Yeah.
Well, Cole, let's give MVPs of the week. I just gotta say it's Penei Sewell for me. Like he recorded
on
a stat,
Turkey Day.
And he's been so good all season. He might have gotten it another time for me earlier in the year, but I'm going Penei. Love me some Penei pasta on Turkey Day.
And I was watching the end of that game too, and I forgot to write it down because I was paying attention and I don't remember if it actually happened. Did he get a turkey leg? It seems like they're inviting more and more players to that every single year, but on the broadcast, if not, he shoulda, because he's a huge part of this, and especially on Thanksgiving for a national audience, just watching it, give the offensive line some credit. I love them. Like we said, some of the runners-up would have been Jordan Love. Heck, Cody Barton getting the game-sealing interception, even though seems like you or I could have gotten one from Jameis on tonight. And then, Julian Blackmon in a win, also with an interception that stopped a score, like flipping that in that close of a game. All worth each. And Dalton Schultz, who I've had in Dynasty for quite a long time. I benched him for the first time since I acquired him this week for Will Dissly. Will Dissly had 0 catches for 0 yards. Dalton Schultz has his best game of the year. You know what? I like Dalton, and I might just keep him on my bench for the next couple of weeks just so he continues to do well. He must be watching.
There you go. Appreciate you, my man. Now we're into basketball season for you and I calling games, so kind of have to shift our mood that way, but our focus is still the National Football League. Appreciate you, my brother. Enjoy your week. I'll catch up with you sometime Thursday.
Likewise. Can't wait for it.
He's Cole Wissinger. I'm Tanner Wilkinson. You've been tuned in to Wilk and Wiss, your bi-weekly breakdown of Utah athletes in the National Football League. And we'd like to highlight you, the fan, as well. We'll see you all on Thursday. For real, not having a lost episode again. We'll make sure this one gets posted.